Hello, my name is Peter Parfitt. Welcome to New Brick Workshop. Now, over the last 3 or 4 years, I've had oodles of requests to do something about the Festool HL850 planing machine. Now, this is not something that I would ordinarily have in my arsenal of tools, because really it's more designed for site work. And the only site work I've done recently is building a shed. However, I've been lucky enough today to be able to borrow a machine from Festool UK. And this machine, when I finish this video, will be packed up, and within about 3 or 4 weeks will then be returned to Festool UK. So if you've got any specific questions that require me to look at the machine, please get them to me sooner rather than later. Now, let me give you a quick rundown about the machine, and then I'm going to demonstrate it. Now, the machine I've been lent is the HL850 EB Plus GB 240 volts. Now, that comes with the machine itself. It has a dust port which can be put on either side. It comes with a parallel fence and a rebate stop. Now, there are a number of extras which I don't have, which really do make this machine stand out from the crowd. One is a device called an angle stop. I'll describe what that does in a few minutes. And also you can get additional planing heads. Now, one of the planing heads, which has a scallop effect, I've seen demonstrated when I visited Festool UK many years ago, and it gives the most pleasing effect. And I had hoped I might be able to get hold of one of those or borrow one, but I haven't. And I've got a piece of oak which was destined to become the seat of a bench, which I was going to have this scallop effect in. But never mind, I'm sure you might be able to find someone else's video which does show that in operation. Now, the machine, of course, comes with instructions, and these are Festool's typical sort of layout, diagrams at the front, multilingual, and they're short and to the point, so you won't be getting any detailed lessons on how to use the machine within these instructions, but there are plenty of videos around apart from this one. Now, it's really important to remember that Festool have the all-inclusive guarantee, and if you register the tool within a certain period after purchase, then that guarantee is extended to 3 years, and that does cover a major compensation if your tool is stolen. Now, the on-off button trigger is just here, and there is a little button to press so that the machine will run continuously, and that then would be released by pressing the trigger again. Now, inside here is an electronically controlled motor which gives a constant speed output even under load. So that's important with something like a planing machine, because you don't want, as you encounter a tougher bit of material, to have the speed drop and therefore the quality of the finish decrease. Now, the planing head can be seen behind here, and this can easily be removed using the tool which is provided, and also engaging the shaft lock which is here. And then you just undo that, and the whole planing head comes out in one. Now, the design of this machine is such that the planing head is only held in at one end effectively. That means you can do rebates as deep as you like, because this machine will just keep going down and down and down. Now, the actual cutters themselves, now this is the ordinary planing head for doing sort of flat planing, and they are arranged in a spiral pattern, and that means that it's taking off shavings which are shear across the surface of the material you're cutting, rather than at right angles to it, and which gives a far better overall finish. The planing heads are quite expensive, and you would need to think very carefully about which ones you would really need, because they're over £100. But the little cutters, these spiral cutters here, the actual cutters can be replaced on their own, and they're about £14 each. And there are 3 little screws here which you remove. This then slides out. There's no setting up required to get these right. They fit down in a groove, and they fit in perfectly. Tighten that up and that's done. And as well as the hex key for taking the planer head out, just here is a little a key which is used to remove the blades when required. When it's not in use, it goes back in there like so. And at this front end is the cutting depth adjustment. You release this locking lever here, and then just turn this handle and set it according to the calibration to the depth of cut that you require. And once you've established the depth you want, you then lock that lever there and then start using the machine. There is a park position there, which means that when the machine is just placed down on a flat surface, the blade should not be in contact with that flat surface. There is a little gadget at the back here, which means when you put the machine down, the blade is just lifted off the surface. So as long as it's a flat surface, it's not going to dig itself in. And after you've released that trigger, the motor will stop within about 1.5 seconds. Now on this side here, you've got a dust port, and this can be fitted on either side. That comes off, you fit it on the other side, switch this lever, which diverts the flow of debris from one side to the other. If you forget this, you'll have a very interesting few moments in the workshop. And if you're outside, you'll think it's snowing. Now the cover here will move up as you're doing a rebate. But if the rebate is so deep that you need to go beyond where this cover stops, there is just here a little locking lever. And you lift that up and move this little lever, which you see just here, the green knob, over to there. And then when it's in that position, that cover stays up, and you can do a rebate as deep as you like. And when you use the machine, you have to wear safety glasses, ear defenders, and Festool recommend you wear gloves. Now I've got these ones, they're cheap and cheerful gloves from Screwfix, which have got a bit of grip to the palms, which actually makes it a lot easier. If you're cutting man-made materials, either plywood, particularly MDF, then you definitely will need some form of respiratory protection. Now, I really wish I had this machine when I was building my shed, because the number of times I had to carry bits of wood that I was cutting out in the garden near the shed being created into the workshop to be planed, and that was a real nuisance. I could have really used that machine, but I did revisit that project when I discovered that the shed door needed easing. Now, when I built the shed and made the door, and I was very proud of my one old-fashioned penny width gap all the way around the door, someone said, "Oh, that will expand in the winter." And I said, "No, it'll be fine." Well, we've had a lot of rain recently, that's my excuse, and the door has expanded, and I realise I've got to take a bit off it. So the idea is I'm going to take 0.5 millimetre off each pass, and I'm going to do 4 passes. That theoretically will be 2 millimetres. When you start, you've got to remember to push down on the front part of the sole plate here, and at the end of the cut up there, you've got to make sure you're putting pressure on at the back to keep the rear half of the sole plate in contact. And all along, you're keeping it flat on the surface, of course. I can see how I was leaning over a bit this way, so I've got to improve my technique a bit now. Oh, that's better. So that's 2. That's 3. Just 1 more to go. That's it, 4 passes. That's exactly what I want. Let's see if it works. Perfect. How about that? Now, for trimming that door, I had the side fence fitted. It fits very, very easily. There's a little plate here, and then there's the fence itself and a retaining screw. And it fits in and can be adjusted into any width you want. Now, what I found when I was doing that planing, keeping it absolutely square to the edge of the door was not as easy as I'd hoped. It was fine, I made a perfectly good job, but I just had to concentrate. So I thought, well, maybe there's a better fence one can get, and there is. And what I really wanted to get hold of was something which Festool make for this, an accessory called the angle stop. And basically it's a large fence that goes on here. Now, there is the capability with the angle stop to adjust it between 0 and 45 degrees, which is quite a useful thing to have. But I was unable to get hold of that. So what I did was I made up a little gadget of my own to extend this surface at right angles to the sole plate. And I'll show you how it works. Basically what I did was I got 2 pieces of wood which would sandwich the side of the fence here. And that would then give me a much larger area at right angles to the sole plate. However, to make this work properly, I had to cut out this groove here and lower the height here so that that would fit in absolutely perfectly and be flush across there. And that was very, very important. Then there are two holes in my piece of wood which match where these two holes are. There's a plain piece of wood that again goes on top of that with two screws that go through. These are retained with washers and nuts on this side, and there are 4 ordinary wood screws at the corners here. Now I've got a nice area here to engage against the side of something so that I'm planing at right angles. Well, I've got this piece of hardwood which I've glued and dominoed onto this frame made of OSB, or sterling board I think it's also called, and I need to plane it flat. Now I've got to take, I reckon, about 0.5 millimetre off, and I just wonder whether I could do it with this planer. Now, although this piece of wood is only 18 millimetres thick or so, I can use the edge of my bench to keep this in the right plane. So I'm going to fix this onto the planing machine and give it a try. And I can demonstrate that this is perfectly square. It is absolutely spot on. Now again, ordinarily one could use a hand plane for something like this, but if you're working on site, you've got a lot of these to do. Actually, it makes sense to have a bit of help. And maybe from this angle you can see how I'm getting the squareness. I'm referencing off the edge of my bench. I actually did that in one pass without realising that it was less than 0.5. I had this set on 0.3 and it's perfect. Now I'm now going to have a go at just rounding over this front edge. I'm going to set my depth of cut now to 0.6 and I'm going to try several passes, altering my angle as I go. I'm going to go back down to 0.2 to finish it off. And just in case you're wondering what this is, I've bought one of those garden containers, you know, the big sort of plastic ones, and I'm going to store gas cylinders and things like that in there so it's outside in a safe place. Don't want them to break the plastic floor, so I've now made this false floor to go in there. Now there is a rebate depth adjustment gauge which allows you to set the depth of a rebate from 0 to 30 millimetres, and it fits at the front of the machine here. You can see just through there a captive nut. This fits down into a recess here, and you just screw that in and you can set your rebate between 0 and 30 millimetres. And note that the end of the planer head guard is still free to move. So with your side fence here and the rebate depth gauge, you can determine the width of the rebate you're going to do and also its depth. Now I've got a piece of stock here which is reasonably wide. I'm going to cut a rebate which is 20 millimetres wide and 10 millimetres deep. It's not bad, bear in mind this is the first one I've done. It probably will be the only one as well. It's got a nice smooth bottom here, apart from this end where I've managed to not correctly control the machine. I've allowed it to dip down at the back. I should have kept more weight at the front. One has to make sure one keeps the machine pressed against this reference surface here. Otherwise you can get little lines. I can see just one little line there where I perhaps wasn't pushed in at the very last cut. The other thing I'd like you to note is there's virtually no dust. Certainly when I was doing that you didn't see bits going everywhere or anything. So having a proper extractor connected is a very good idea. I've found this old piece of walnut. It came from a tree in the UK. so it might be interesting. So I've held it there. I'm just going to take a little bit off here and see what happens. I've set my depth of cut to 1 millimetre. Well, it's starting to look very interesting. Now, obviously, this machine is aimed at the person working on site. You might be a window fitter making rebates for windows. It could be someone who's working on any form of wooden construction, from roofing through to oak barns, whatever it might be. Also, for anyone who has an artistic flair and wants to have that sort of look that someone's cut something with an adze and then cleaned it up with a sander, that sort of wavy look. This machine is absolutely perfect for that. Now, this machine would take some getting used to. I'd think probably half an hour of playing around on some scrap bits of wood would be a good idea. But after that, you'd be an expert. But don't take my word for it. I know we're nearly at the stage where we might be thinking about woodworking shows being available soon. Certainly a number of the woodworking shops are available. Go and get your hands on one of these, feel it. If you can watch other videos, not just mine, certainly some of the Festool ones are very good for this particular machine. Remember, dust extraction, superb. Remember, it's really quality kit. It's really well made. The bits and pieces that go with it can be quite expensive, but if you're just doing plain work, as I was demonstrating today, replacement cutters are fairly cheap. And once again, I'm grateful to Festool UK for lending me this machine. I'm going to clean it up now. It's going to go back in its box. And if I've had no queries in the next 3 or 4 weeks about it, it will be going back to Festool. Many thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.